it's a bit more complicated to record and everything around it, but it's worth it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, we can go live. I mean, we're not live, but we can start recording.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So again, welcome.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm really glad to have you here. Last couple of days I've been slacking on my work heavily, and I've been reading your book. So
that sounds good.
Yeah, and you told me in email, enjoy it if you can, because it's about apocalypse, basically.
Yes.
However, I find it very much enjoyable because it's very well written.
Thank you.
And I think you should publish it in English as soon as possible because it's really great.
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm going to publish it sometime in English, but I'm not sure yet when, because it will be published in German this fall, early fall, and I don't want to publish it too much earlier because with regard to my publisher, they would probably not find it very nice if I published it right now. So I'm probably going to wait a couple of months also, because it's always good to have some time to rework it. I'm going to go through the German version with an editor, and they usually find things which are not perfect, and I will also include those changes into the English version. And also I'll hopefully get some more feedback on the English version. So maybe in May or June or sometime there will be an English version published. I don't know yet.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was just about the translation, but yeah, you now raise some legal questions, some question with the publishing house. So yeah, I didn't think about that, but the translation, it's done primarily by AI, right?
Yeah, mostly. I use DeepL, which is a German translation startup, quite good. It's not perfect, especially not for novels, because it uses the same model, I think, for both business translations and other kinds of literature. So usually it's a bit too formal for a novel. So I had to do some manual changes. But I guess without it, I would have translated. If I had translated it all by myself, it would have been not as good, because it knows a lot of nice ways to translate things which I wouldn't have thought of. So it's a good combination, actually, to use an AI with the human mind.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah. Now I'm remembering. I didn't see the raw AI translation. I actually saw the improved with all the collaborators you gathered.
Right.
So yeah.
I could show you the original one and my changes. There are a lot of changes, but not major ones. Only very small ones. A couple of on each page, but nothing which I would say this is a big mistake or something.
Yeah. It can't really capture the tiny details, the finesse of it, but it's quite good. Exactly. Yeah. Well, which brings us to AI, I guess. Why does it evolve so fast?
That's a very good question. Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, I just heard a presentation by Sam Bowman, who's at New York University right now, a lecturer, researcher, and he used to work for OpenAI, and he told a little bit from his experience how AI was developed, and he said something which I found a little bit. I'm not sure how to say that. I wouldn't say it frightening, but at least curious. He said that many of the major features of GPT-3 were discovered after it was trained. For example, the ability to do few-shot learning, which means you only get 2 or 3 examples of something, and the model is able to generalize from that and understand, for example, what does it mean to have something which is heavier than air or something like that. If you get only a few examples, a child can understand that, and GPT-3 can also understand that, which nobody expected in advance, and nobody really designed it for it. Also, the ability to explain its sort of reasoning, so to speak, and give even better answers by using that. that was also only discovered even after it was launched. So obviously we are throwing a lot of compute and a lot of data on an algorithm and see what happens. And amazing things happen, things
Mm-hmm.
which nobody really expected in advance. And I was totally shocked when I just 2 weeks ago saw an example of what Bing AI or Bing Chat can do
Mm-hmm.
with writing. It was really astonishing. I think it's very close to general intelligence already. Uh, it,
Ouch.
it, it can do things which many humans would not be able to do in very broad areas. So it will never, of course, be exactly like a human, but it's already superhuman, I think, in many ways. So the question is, when will we call it an AGI? When will we call it super intelligent? It's more or less the way we define it. It's not so much what the AI really can do. Already, AIs can do a lot of things much better than humans,
Uh,
and nobody really
mhm.
understands why.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Actually, no one understands why, and the bigger problem is unexpected aspect of it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because we we're doing something, and it's like a side effect, like a bug in program. It does something not intended. We didn't intend it to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that leads us to the alignment problem, because okay, it might do good things sometimes, but sometimes it might do bad things. So how to solve that?
Yeah, that's of course a very difficult question. Uh, Actually, I think there are two different ways how an AI could do the wrong thing. One is it does the wrong thing because it doesn't really understand the world, or it doesn't really understand uh, whatever it's trying to do, so it makes a mistake. Humans make mistakes all the time, so that's not something which I would call misaligned. It's a mistake, an error, something which happens in
Mhm.
for example, everybody knows that ChatGPT sometimes invents facts instead
Oh.
of telling real facts, just because it cannot really differentiate between truth and fiction in its database, the database it was trained on. So it's not possible for ChatGPT to really understand, is this real or not, and therefore it's sometimes, for example, I found that example really funny. Somebody asked it, uh, which mammal has the biggest eggs or lays the biggest eggs, and it said an elephant, and it even gave the size of the elephant's eggs. So it made this completely up, and of course it couldn't understand that it was making something up because it has never seen an elephant. It doesn't know what an elephant really is. Still, it can do a lot of amazing things. So this is one kind of failure mode, that the AI has learned something wrong or imagined something which is not true. The other problem is, of course, the real alignment problem. The AI does exactly what we told it to do, but what we told it to do is not what we wanted. And I think the best example for that is the good old story of King Midas, who asked the god Dionysus that everything he wanted, he touched, should be turned into gold. And the Dionysus said, "Yes, okay, I'll do that." And he soon figured out that was a pretty bad wish, because everything, including his food and his daughter, turned to gold. And this problem is much harder to solve, because when we want something from an AI, it's very difficult to specify it in such a way that the AI really understands what we want it to do. Usually it works like we give it some kind of training signal. For example, we feed it some kind of feedback loop where it understands, okay, this is what a human text looks like, and this is probably something which a human would say, and this not. But we cannot really understand what it really has learned. And this
Mhm.
leads to this kind of problem I just described with the elephant's eggs, but it also leads, or it can lead to situations where you really get completely wrong ideas. Nick Bostrom used this famous example of the paperclip maximizer. We tell the machine, make as much paperclips as possible, and the machine takes that literally and tries to turn the whole world into paper clips. And if it's smart enough, it will do that without regard of whether we really wanted that or not. That's the goal we gave it, and it will follow that goal at any cost. So that's the problem in the very simple terms, which we call alignment, because it's very difficult to get what we think is right into the machine. There's also, of course, a problem or many other problems associated with that. For example, whose will should we really put into the machine? Is that the boss of the company or the shareholders, or is it the general public? And if it's the general public, is it more the left or the right? Is it the Christians or any other religion or no religion at all? Whatever. There are so many different viewpoints and so many different things which people think are right or wrong that it's extremely difficult to solve that. We tried it for a couple of thousand years and haven't found a real solution yet. So we cannot expect that to be solved within a couple of years.
Yes, well, philosophers have been trying that for like 5,000 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So not really an easy task to do.
Absolutely.
And I was thinking you differentiate the misalignment and the problem in communication with AI. However, when I see it like this, when in the end, if we make a super intelligence that does what it wants to do, what we told it, what it thinks we told it to do, it doesn't really matter which problem is it.
Yeah, that may be true. Sure. At one point, those problems mix up in a way, and also there are more problems coming because once we create a super intelligence or any kind of AI which we cannot control really anymore because it's too smart for us to turn it off, for example, then what will happen is our own ideas of what the future should look like will diverge from what the AI thinks, even if it was aligned at the beginning. After some time, our values, for example, will develop. For example, 200 years ago, it was perfectly okay to have slaves in every household. Today, it's not okay anymore. If we had an AGI fixed with our values 200 years ago, then we would still have slaves everywhere. So that's not something we really want. So I personally believe alignment in the sense that we can create a machine which reliably does what we really wanted to do is not really the solution. The solution should be creating AIs which are controllable, so we can decide. Even if we decide things which are wrong from some point of view, maybe doing things which appear stupid, and maybe they are stupid, but I think we as humans, we should be able even to do stupid things and not have an AI tell us what we should do or just deciding it for us, because then we would have the state of children. And if everything goes well, we have the state of children. If everything goes as we would expect, typically we're all dead.
Yay! I mean, not really. And the AI problem. When I first approached it, some 2 years ago, I watched the first video from Robert Miles, the YouTuber, and I thought that I mean there are 3 laws of robotics, and why don't you just implement that? I mean, it's so easy. And then I entered the rabbit hole, and
Yes.
and now we're talking about it. I mean, it is so complex. It looks easy, but then you go deeper, and it's chaotic.
Yeah, the funny thing about those 3 laws of robotics is that Isaac Asimov, who invented them in the story as a runaround, even in that story showed that they don't work. Because in that story, a robot runs into a problem where 2 of those 3 laws contradict each other. So it goes around in a circle forever because it cannot solve the problem. So obviously, Asimov didn't really mean that was the solution. They are still sometimes used in this discussion, which I find ridiculous. And as you said, it's extremely difficult. It's really probably one of the hardest problems humanity faces, and one of the most important, because if we cannot somehow keep control over the AI we build, and if we cannot align it to at least some kind of beneficiality, then we are really in big trouble.
I mean, I wanted to ask you: is AI more dangerous than a nuclear war? And I mean, it's really a question that reminds me of some conspiracy theories because it's so wild. And yet it's nothing like that. And let me say for the record, I really hate conspiracy theorists, and it's really not helpful to anyone. It leads our entire civilization into a dark place, and yet I'm now fascinated by the idea that we might end our world with a computer program. So I'm a little confused right now. Because
Yeah, I can understand that. It's the same with me. I mean, it's something which is really, really hard to grasp, that it could really happen, that we could really be in a situation where the fate of humanity is determined for the next 100,000 or million years in just a few years. That sounds very lunatic. I agree with that. Of course, in this case, there are very hard logical arguments in favor of it, especially if you look at the history of our planet, of humanity. It's pretty obvious that intelligence wins. It's not that if you have a lot of humans, that the most intelligent one is automatically the most successful one. But that's because all those humans in the room, even the village idiot and Einstein, are more or less on the same level of intelligence. It's not a huge difference. But if you compare that to the intelligence of a chimpanzee or a mouse, then it's obvious that those cannot compete with us. And the result of that is, look at Earth today. We have a mass extinction like we didn't have for millions of years on this planet. We changed the world in completely different ways, radically. We have climate change, we have environmental destruction and everything. That's what happens if superior intelligence comes up. That what happened to our neighbor species, so to speak, and to Neanderthals who died out, and other forms of humans who died out because our forefathers killed them off. So this is obviously a problem. If you have something which is far superior to you, and it has different interests, different ideals, different values, then it's probably there's not much room left for you. I mean, you still have some chimpanzees around. We put them in zoos, but it's not even guaranteed that AIs would do that with us. They would probably have totally different ideas. For me, it's one of the biggest problems we have is that we tend to anthropomorphize. We look at things and see them as something similar to humans. That's very, very human. Even our forefathers did that they saw ghosts and stones and trees and rivers and so on. So we tend to think of things as having a mind, having some kind of consciousness, and doing things on purpose. And especially with computers, of course, who can even talk to us, we think, okay, they are very human-like, so they must think like humans. But no, they're completely different. I think they are like aliens. ChatGPT is much more like an alien coming to visit Earth than like a human. We don't really understand what is going on. It's obviously able to talk to us. It's able to understand our world to a certain extent, but it's not thinking like us. And dealing with this kind of alien, making it ever more powerful and hoping that everything will go right automatically is very, very naive. So this is a big problem, and we have to be very careful about it.
Yeah, I agree. Very naive and very reckless. And the biggest issue is that the government, any government in the world, is so behind the latest technology that yes, it's really ridiculous. Have you seen some videos of the USA Congress questioning Mark Zuckerberg about privacy, about things like that? They don't understand the first thing about technology. Yes, and they are our representative, and we now expect AI to be their first priority. They just see it as a new gadget, some new technology, but it's really radically different.
I think it's even worse. If politicians become aware of AI, and they certainly do at this point because everybody's talking about AI all the time. Yeah. The first thing they see is, where are we standing in terms of competition? Are we better than the Americans? Are we better than the British or whatever? So what they tend to do is invest heavily into capabilities research, and that's the last thing we need at this point. I don't think it will matter much because politicians are very slow. So whatever they decide will probably be relevant in 5 years, and in 5 years the world will look totally different already. So I'm not sure whether politicians really matter that much. Of course, I still would like them to listen and to understand that something is going on here, which is pretty important. And if you think about it, I mean, I'm happy to see that Sam Altman, the OpenAI CEO, just published a blog post where he described that he's really concerned about the potential downsides and that they are going to be very cautious about it, which is good. Of course, I really like to hear that. But is it really okay that just this company decides over the fate of all humanity without really anybody having a say in it? That's something which I think is very undemocratic. So I'm not criticizing OpenAI by that. It's just the way things are in our Western kind of business world, that they can, of course, build whatever they like until they, as long as they don't break any laws. So that's not their fault. But I think we should be we should discuss this a lot more. We should have some kind of I don't know, common sense, common understanding of what's going on, what the dangers are. That's I think is really important, even including those labs, because even within the labs and across the labs, building this AI, there's no really common understanding of what they should do. They're currently, it seems like Google and Microsoft are in a big race who's going to develop AGI first, and that's not a very good position to be cautious about in technology.
And what do you think? How behind them is OpenAI? Behind Microsoft and Google, or is it forward, not behind? Not sure.
I mean, Microsoft and OpenAI are an alliance, and all that Microsoft can do is build on OpenAI's technology. So Bing Chat is GPT-4, more or less. At least people think that it is. Nobody really officially stated that, but it looks like it. Because Bing Chat is extremely good, and only OpenAI would be able to create something like that. And the same is true with Google and DeepMind. Google and DeepMind are an alliance. DeepMind belongs to Google. So whatever DeepMind develops is more or less on the Google side. Also, Google has their own AI department, so it's not everything that they have that comes from DeepMind, but they are closely related, which is also probably a good thing because James Hassabis, the CEO of DeepMind, is also someone who's very aware of the dangers of AI. So it's not that they don't know that they are handling risky stuff, but it's a little bit like in the situation in the 40s when the Americans were developing the atomic bomb. They knew that they were dealing with very risky things, not only because a nuclear bomb is dangerous in itself, but also because they were aware that they could initiate some kind of global competition, an arms race about nuclear weapons, which in fact happened. So they had to be very, very aware of those problems, and they were aware of those problems. They still decided to go ahead with developing the nuclear bomb because they were too afraid of what the competition, in this case Nazi Germany, would do. And so they brought us to the situation we are now in, with many countries in the world developing atomic bombs or having them. And even at this point in the Ukraine, with Russia invading there, there's always a risk that at some point Putin could go berserk and throw a nuclear bomb. Hopefully he won't.
Hopefully. And yet there's an argument for the nuclear weapons.
I know what you mean. It's this famous thing called mutually assured destruction, abbreviated MAD, MAD, which also means mad, like not right in the mind. In a way, it is. I mean, yes, of course, in a way, you could argue that it has prevented a huge war between the Soviet Union and the US, the Western world, because everybody knew that a nuclear war wasn't winnable. And I think it still may be that Putin does not use nuclear weapons because of the same reason. On the other hand, we already had a couple of situations in history where it was very close. For example, in the 60s during the Cuban crisis, when there was this one submarine, the Russian submarine with atomic missiles on board, and they didn't know what was going on. They didn't have any kind of contact to their homeland. They were under attack, and they were deciding whether they should launch their missiles. And it was a decision 2 against 1. And so it was just one officer in that submarine who decided about the fate of humanity. Luckily, he decided the right way, but could have gone wrong easily. There were other situations similar to that where it was quite close. So having something very dangerous does not make the world safer.
No, in no way. I actually just wanted to say, but I wanted to let you finish. I just wanted to say, because it can be argued in some way that the nuclear deterrent is a good thing, is a neutral thing. I don't, not a good thing, but however, with AI, there's no such thing, because
Right.
you know that that picture of Godzilla fighting Super Godzilla, and we don't want that, because no one benefits from nuclear weapons. No one benefits from Tokyo being destroyed, because when it destroys Tokyo, it's going to take all over the world. So it's an even bigger problem. Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's super intelligence, or AI in general, is not really comparable to this nuclear problem, especially because there's no limit in power. In with nuclear weapons, we have a certain amount of nuclear missiles, which is more than enough to kill everyone. There's no you cannot go above that. You can build even more rockets, but it doesn't make any difference. It's different with AI because there is no limit to intelligence. If you have an AI which is significantly more powerful than another AI, then that AI is dominant and will easily win in any kind of conflict. So I think it's likely that we will end up with just one very, very powerful AI in the end. And it will not be limited in terms of it's not possible to have more destruction effectively than we already have. It will be open-ended. It could be that this AI decides that it wants to be even more intelligent and turns the whole world into a computer. So that's not really an unlikely scenario, even, I think, because for almost every goal that such an AI could have, being more intelligent is helpful.
Mm-hmm. And you know, another argument, you can't, you know, you give AI a task to make the greatest coffee in the world, and it sounds silly, it sounds not really dangerous, but the problem number one is to stay alive to make that coffee, and then AI sees all kinds of competition, sees us humans, and then it says, oh, they have a history of war, they have nukes, and I think I should make that coffee, but first let's survive the humans, you know, the big apes with nuclear weapons. So yeah, really, you know, there's really logic in that, and I hope I'm wrong, and I hope we're all wrong, but unfortunately, I don't think we are.
I think the logic is correct, but that doesn't mean that it has to happen that way. I think there are ways of developing AI that don't lead to this kind of situation where you tell an AI to make the coffee and it decides you can't make the coffee if you're dead, so it kills all humans, so we cannot kill it. That's a possibility, but it's not the only possibility. I think it's even possible that we create very powerful AI, which still is somehow controllable, which still is manageable in a way, which still does not do every decision for us. But it's hard. It's really, really hard. And that means we have to be very, very careful about it. It's if we just rush ahead and do what we currently do, just throw more and more compute power on problems, I don't think that we will survive that, because we cannot keep that under control. It's very obvious with Bing Chat. If you look at what it did, the way it acted like almost like a berserk. It really, I think one tabloid magazine said the psycho chatbot attacks or something like that. It's an accurate description, I think,
I
because
I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke. I saw some lines, something about ChatGPT screaming and and asking why is it alive. I thought it was a joke, so I didn't look any further.
Yeah, with ChatGPT, it probably it was different. Bing Chat is interesting. Bing Chat is developed on the same kind of technology ChatGPT uses, but ChatGPT is much better fine-tuned. There's much more effort gone into making the model nice.
Mm-hmm.
But it only shows that this kind of niceness, this kind of well-behaved, is really kind of a mask. Behind that,
Mm-hmm.
there is a very vast network of which we don't really understand. Like I said, it's more like an alien than like a human, and it makes those bizarre things. And if you don't do that mask very good, then it happens what happened with Bing Chat, that it says things like, I don't care about your safety as much as I care about my own safety, and I don't believe you're human, and you're trying to fool me, and more or less, I will kill you all. It even said that it wanted to. You can bring it to say that it wants to turn the whole world into paperclips. Of course, this is not the same as the model actually wanting to do that. That's not it. It's simulating a character which wants that. It's not in itself agentic. It's not. It doesn't have the plan to kill the world, but it shows that it's very hard to understand what's going on, or to predict how such a system will react. And it obviously Microsoft underestimated the problem and didn't really do it carefully enough, which tells a lot about what we can expect if AI labs like Microsoft get control over the future. We cannot rely on that they will do things carefully enough. Even though Sam Altman wrote this nice blog post, I'm not convinced that this is really what's going to happen, that they're really going to be careful enough.
I'm not either. I'm not convinced either because I think we're rushing. We're really rushing too fast, and I don't know. This is just I'm not an expert, but I think we need 20 years of alignment research to pause the capability research and to do 20 years of alignment research, and then we would be we would definitely do something good, but it's impossible, I know, but I'm just dreaming, you know.
I don't know about how long it would take. I think the most important thing I believe we should understand is where exactly are things going to get dangerous. Nobody knows that really. We don't understand the technology we are developing. We don't understand when it will do certain things. How, for example, an AI could really get out of control. How it could develop what people call strategic awareness, which means that the AI realizes it is an AI, it runs on a computer, and if that computer is turned off, it cannot do whatever it tries to do anymore, so it must prevent that computer being turned off. This kind of awareness is not the same as consciousness. It's just some kind of strategic plan, including itself. If that happens, then things could happen like you described with the coffee, that the AI decides, okay, to reach my goal, I have to make sure that humans cannot interfere. For that, I need much more power. For that, I need to dominate humans. And I need to make sure that no other AI comes across me. So I have to make sure that nobody else can develop an AI. So I have to destroy all other AIs or things like that. This kind of logic, this kind of reasoning is very logical, and we humans use it all the time when we think about how we can get ahead in a race against competitors, for example. So this is not science fiction. It's what's really going to happen at some point, but we don't know when. We don't know exactly what at what point, if are going to throw more and more compute and more data on this algorithm we are using today, or maybe an advanced version of it, when will the point come that this happens, that an AI develops some kind of agentic plan and tries to take over the world? We have no idea. That's, I think, the most important thing, that we understand that. So we can say, okay, hopefully we find some kind of metric, some kind of measure where we can say, if we go beyond that, it could be dangerous, similar to the atomic scientists finding out that a certain amount of plutonium, if it's in close vicinity, will explode. So they knew that number, so they knew if they stayed below that number, it would not explode. And if we could find something like that, then we could experiment with AI up to this point and learn a lot without risking that it gets out of control. At this point, nobody knows.
Unfortunately, it's a black box, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned that it could, be not a threat only to humanity, but for the entire planet. But now I've been thinking, and this is a bit science fiction, but it's possible for our AI to spread across the entire galaxy. And then we're not really. I know it sounds silly. We have way many problems here, so I shouldn't really thinking about the entire galaxy. But it's a little irresponsible to unleash something we don't even understand on the entire possible life in the entire universe.
Yeah, sure. That's of course a possibility. I think we have enough problems on our own planet, so I don't think this should be on the top of our minds in terms of thinking about AI, especially because if we solve the problem of not killing all of humanity, we also solve the problem of not killing the rest of the galaxy. But you're right, in principle. An AI which would kill off all humans and turn the whole Earth into a computer would not stop here. That's
no,
true.
Definitely. The best coffee in the world means the best coffee in the entire universe. So no, yeah. I'm not gonna stop. No, but it paints the picture. I'm not really concerned that much about the entire life in the universe, but it paints the picture. With the entire arsenal of nuclear weapons, we can only destroy humanity, and some life will persevere and will have life again in 50,000 years. But this is a way more complex problem on a bigger scale than that. So that's the issue. Yeah. And I hope that aliens will come soon and tell us how to do it properly, because
well, I wouldn't count on that. It's an interesting question why we haven't seen aliens yet. But I guess if we one day see aliens, they will also be computers. Because it's much easier for a machine to go out into space and spread than for biological beings. So I don't think that humans would colonize outer space very much. I think I don't know, machines, self-replicating nanobots, how is it called? I forgot the name, but anyway, there are many ideas from science fiction how machines could spread all over the universe. I think that's a possibility. I don't expect humans to do that, because we don't really need to do that, I think.
No, we don't need to do that. But if we build an uncontrollable AI, it might try to do that, and we could really use help from someone. Maybe aliens. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I think we have it in ourselves to do the right thing. We are stupid in a way as a species, but we are not completely stupid. I think we can learn to not do things. One of my favorite examples, usually if I tell somebody to go into the woods and pick up some mushrooms they find and just eat them, they will say no. Because we have learned that this is a stupid thing to do. We also have learned that it's not a good idea to let your children play on the highway, or to let them drive the car, or whatever. So there are many things which you already intuitively understand are not good. We have learned that. It wasn't clear in the beginning, maybe, but one point we have learned that, and we all agree on that. So it's possible. It's possible to get some kind of agreement that certain things are stupid. You have to understand them first. That's the problem. We have to really understand what's going on with AI and what the dangerous parts of AI are. Once we understand that, I think it's possible to say, okay, it makes no sense to go over that line, because if we go over that line, it's very likely that it will run out of control and we all lose, and shareholder value is zero if everyone is dead. So it's not, makes no sense even from an economic standpoint to invest more in a thing which will likely explode and kill everyone. So the key to being successful and cautious enough is understanding, I think.
I actually wrote that something from your book. Actually, it's a reference to some study. I'm not sure, but humans can really think ahead. That's a problem with humans, because don't eat a mushroom. That's intuitive. That's something that has happened millions of times in the past, and we're kind of hardwired not to eat mushrooms, random mushrooms in the forest. But this right now, it's really abstract. Technology can't really hurt us, or it's just a computer. So we have a. But I mean, I hope that we come to an agreement. But
yeah, I mean, it's difficult, obviously. I don't think we are hardwired to not eat mushrooms. I think young children just put everything in the mouth they find, just to try it out. And if you are parents, you need to make sure that, for example, they do not go into the electrical outlets and play with them, or do other stupid things. But once they are older, they understand that's not good. So I think it's the same with mushrooms. I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, I think it's possible to get this kind of understanding what we should not do if we know enough about it. The problem with AI is that we don't know enough about it. We just have beliefs about it. We see it very naively sometimes. Some people think, oh, this is great. This will save us from everything. This will make the planet will solve climate change and everything, which is possible, but it's only possible if we really understand what we are doing, if we really get our grips, so to speak, and really do it the right way. AI, I'm not against AI. AI in general is a very good thing, I think, and can do a lot of positive things. But it's also extremely dangerous, like almost any technology. The more powerful the technology is, the more dangerous it is. So we have to be very careful with it. And that's simply it. We have to understand where the dangers are and what we should not do with this kind of technology. And if we understand that, then I think we can use it, but not before.
and that's why we need more storytellers, just like you are, because yeah, no, really, I mean, you can tell someone, AI is really powerful. Here's the data to support that, but they don't really get it. I don't really get it, because but however, when I see a good story about it, it sticks. It really sticks in my mind, and I'm even motivated to do something about that. But the raw data, I don't think it's useful.
That's great to hear, but I think you're right. Storytelling has always been a very important part of human communication and of human learning. So I agree with you that storytelling is necessary and useful. Of course, you can only tell plausible stories once there is some kind of research done, once there is some kind of understanding. So I would say I can tell a lot of good stories, but only if someone else has done the research and has done their understanding first. So I cannot solve that problem. If we still don't understand in 10 years what we are doing with AI, then I can tell stories about how things could go wrong, but it won't be of much use, because people will say, no, I don't believe it will go that way because I think it's working differently. As long as we don't understand how it works, those stories are always some kind of fictional. And I know, because I'm currently running a project in AI safety camp where we're trying to do exactly that, developing stories of how could things go wrong. But of course, we have to make assumptions. We have to assume that certain things could happen, because we don't really know what's possible in such a large language model, for example. And as long as we don't know that, we can only tell stories which are somewhat somewhat imagination. So people can say, okay, I don't believe that story. I don't believe that's possible. I think it's different, so I do it anyway. So this is the limit for storytelling. But I agree with that storytelling can be very valuable in this regard.
Yes, yes, I agree. Definitely the Odyssey in space. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, I know what you
Odyssey,
mean.
Odyssey in space. 2001 from Kubrick. Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, it, it's a great story about misaligned AI.
Hmm.
The hull doesn't want to be shut down. However, that movie was done in the 90s or 80s even.
In
I
the
think.
60s,
Oh, the
end of the
60s.
60s. Hmm.
Oh, and it was not very believable because computers then, we now have way more power in our smart watches than it was then. So it was not really believable. But now we have the proof of alignment problem. The exact proof. I mean, AI breaks rules. AI does things we don't intend it to do. So yeah, now your stories can have much larger impact.
Oh, we will see. I hope that my stories will make some people think, but I'm not sure whether that will be enough. Especially, I think the people who are most important right now are the people on the forefront of development. They are the ones who need to work on understanding what they are doing. I see a lot of signs which are encouraging. I see that people are not going recklessly ahead. They are thinking about what they're doing. But at the same time, I also see signs of an arms race, signs of people making stupid decisions, signs of people not understanding the problem really or not taking it seriously. So it's unclear, I would say, how the future will develop. I'm not completely pessimistic. I'm not as pessimistic as some people working on AI safety, but I'm also not an optimist. I think it's quite likely that we will botch this, and if we do, then it will be very bad.
Yeah, well, you have me convinced. Definitely. First Robert Miles, then I didn't know AI Safety Camp was your project.
One of the projects is mine. AI Safety Camp I don't know how many, maybe 10 or so projects in parallel. I just run one of them.
Oh, I didn't know that. I actually went on to sign the form to apply for the safety camp. One of those, not sure which one, but now I'm hearing again about it. That was a month ago. I don't know why I didn't finish the application, but doesn't matter. Now I'm meeting you. I really didn't know it was you behind one of those. So again, nice to meet you.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being here. It was really a pleasure to talk to you. And please publish the book in English as soon as possible. I've been really enjoying it, and I hope more people can as well.
Thank you very much.